Lifequakes or life transitions and the aftershocks that follow are something we all experience. A lifequake can stem from the heartbreaking grief that arises from the loss of a loved one or the disorientation felt when life suddenly shifts due to the loss of a job, relationship, identity, or health challenge. Learning to navigate these transitions with mindfulness, grace, and self-compassion is the key to finding your way back to joy, happiness, and inner peace. Advanced Grief Recovery Method Specialist and Certified Life Transition Coach, Amy Lindner Lesser, MSW, expertly supports clients to navigate their lifequakes and transitions with warmth, kindness, and grace. Learning to accept support as you navigate your way through the aftershocks is one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself. Learn more at introspection.com. That's introspection.com.
Welcome back to Introspection. I'm your host, Amy Lindner Lesser, life coach for life's transitions, mostly ones that cause grief to happen. And what that means is that you're in a relationship, whether it was with a human being, it was a pet, whether it was a job that you spent so much of your time with that it became like another partner or spouse. Now, I'm not talking about crazy relationships. I'm just saying that any relationship you have, when it's a close relationship or a deep relationship, when it changes, when it ends or changes in some way, will cause grief.
Welcome to Introspection, the podcast about moving from grief to growth. I'm Amy Lindner Lesser, your host. Introspection started out as a podcast about hospitality, innkeeping, and innkeepers. After about a year, I realized that my life and interests have morphed from hospitality to helping others navigate from grief and loss to growth and living. In this new version of Introspection, I will be talking about my personal experiences with loss, and there are quite a few, what I've learned along the way through my professional training, as well as from my coaching experiences. I'll also be bringing in guests to share interesting ideas. So grab a beverage, find a comfy place, take a deep breath, and listen in.
So today, I want to talk a little bit about life without your mother. One of the things that I do is I have a Facebook group called Navigating Life's Transitions. And many of the members on there have recently lost a parent. And the thing that's really difficult is that for most of us, the second longest relationship that we have in our entire life is with our mother. And the first is with ourselves. So when you lose your mother, you lose history, because hopefully she's known you since you were born, knows things that you don't remember about yourself. And when your mother dies, or as often happens too, if she gets dementia, or if she's in a nursing home without a memory, or even if she leaves the family, you are now sort of put into the role of being your mom. You become the one who is the memory for you, and if you have siblings, for them. And that's a tough role. You're now the creator and the holder. You, if you choose to accept it, are the one who creates or maintains family traditions and ensure that joy and wisdom and history and nurturing are passed down from generation to generation, as your mother would have liked, but mostly as you want it to go. So that if there was some way that she behaved that you didn't like, you have the opportunity to change that now. You become the one who solves all the problems, the mature one. You take over for the jobs that she did when you were a baby or a young child. And you solve the problems for everyone, just as she did. It's really hard, though, when you are the one hurting, because no matter how old we are, when our mother passes away, we revert back to being the child, the little girl who misses her mama, no matter what the relationship was. I had a very mixed relationship with my mother. She was a narcissist. And what that means is that she certainly was not the easiest person to deal with. She demanded and commanded attention, often taking it away from me as a child. And while I would get angry with that, and as an adult got extremely angry, she was still my mom. I still loved her. And I still, as I get further away from when she died, I understand a little bit more. I am more forgiving of what she did. And it's easier. It's not easy, but it's easier to reconcile the two moms. Because when I was very little, she was my best friend. And for most of us, our mothers are our best friends, our first best friends. Sometimes they're our first enemies. Almost always, they're our cheerleaders. They may cheer for your siblings, but they do cheer for you too. So what we need to do is we need to give ourselves grace. We need to be able to say, thank you, Mom, for this, for that, for all of the things that you did for me. And if you can write them down, that's even better. Get a list of all the things that you appreciate from life with Mom. And then say, these things that you did hurt me. And I need to get them off my chest. I need to tell you that it hurt when you punished me. I need to tell you that it hurt when you scolded me in front of my friends. It really embarrassed me. So write all this down and then write a letter to your mom. Say all those things there. Thank her for the positives and tell her that you understand that she did the best that she was capable of doing, whether it was a really poor job of parenting or a wonderful job of parenting. No parent is perfect, nor are we born with the know-how of how to raise a child. Plus, every child is different. We're different as parents, or they're different as parents, with every child because their relationships are different. After you write that letter, I want you to take it and tear it up into pieces and flush it down the toilet. Or put it into a non-flammable, non-breakable bowl and burn it. And then I want you to take some time and give yourself some extra love, some extra self-care. Think of your mom, maybe, and what she might have liked. Maybe if she loved Chinese food, you go ahead and have a Chinese dinner. Do something to honor the part of her that you can honor. Say thank you and then move forward. It's not easy. It's not going to happen with one step. That one step may be just a little toe in the water, but it's a little toe in the water. It's a little further than you were before you started listening to this. Our moms for women are role models. They may be positive role models. They may be negative role models. You get the chance to make the choice. So take some time and think about it and see what you can come up with. I'd love to hear. The other thing that I want to quickly talk about are the 5 stages of grief. Most of us have heard about them and have heard about Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who wrote and devised the 5 stages back in, I think it was 1969. The thing that I never knew until a few years ago was that those stages, the 5 stages of grief, were never meant to talk about grief on the part of the survivor. What they were was they were a way to categorize terminally ill patients and the stages that they go through after being given the diagnosis. She certainly wasn't thinking of those of us dealing with the loss of dreams, from infertility, miscarriage, gender affirmation surgery, career loss, disappointments, or even other types of relationship changes, such as divorce or separation or breakups. The closest would be that she thought of those of us whose loved one has died. The fact that it has nothing to do with being the survivor in the relationship is really important. She never talked about the fact that grief and her steps or the stages are not linear, meaning they don't go like this and you walk up one step and then up the next step and up the next. It's much more of a spiral that you could go up 1, you go to 3, then you come back down. It's all a mishmash. She also didn't talk about the fact that grief happens for every single person differently than anybody else and with any other loss. So that the response that you have and how you grieve when a partner passes away versus when a parent passes away or a sibling or a friend, every single one of them is going to be different because our relationships were different. Siblings are going to have different responses to the same parent's death because our relationships are different. And unfortunately, the universe or God doesn't give us a roadmap to show us the route that we need to take to navigate grief. It doesn't tell us how to get from wherever we are, whether it's point A, point P, or point R. It doesn't tell us how to get from there to point Z, if point Z is even the destination. Each of us has to navigate the unfamiliar territories and routes without a map, with no GPS. Some of us drive fast sports cars, some drive minivans, others are driving taxis where they're taking other people along with them, and some are driving fully loaded 16-wheel tractor trailers. They're going to go at different speeds. They're going to go on different routes because tractor trailers or trucks can't go on parkways. So we're all going to be different. I didn't mention what the 5 stages were, so I'm going to mention them. But remember, they really don't have a whole lot to do with the griever. So they are denial, which is numbness and shock. It didn't happen. It can't possibly be. I was just talking to them. Or their birthday's next week. How could they not be here? It's not the same as not caring. It's not believing. The next one is bargaining. What could they or I or you have done to prevent this? If it was a job, was there something that I did wrong that my department is being laid off, or that the merger is happening? What did I do, or what could I have done to save somebody's life? Was it the last treatment? Should we have tried every possible thing? Depression. That's when the reality of the loss sinks in. And we start to question, how is our life going to look from now on? I've always known this to be this way, and now it's not going to be that way. Anger, which comes along with helplessness and powerlessness, that we're angry, which is often depression turned inward, and we want to punish somebody. Sometimes we want to punish God. Sometimes we're angry at the person who died. How could they have left us? How could they did whatever they did with finances? Or in my case, I was really upset, even though I knew my husband was dying. I was like, how could he have left me as a single parent? I loved my daughters. I loved my husband. I never wanted to be a single parent. And the final stage, according to Kubler-Ross, is acceptance and moving on. Again, these were identified in response to terminally ill people being given their diagnoses and their reactions, but not to the people who are left behind. It's easy to make assumptions that we'll proceed through all these phases in an orderly manner, from denial to bargaining to depression, then anger, and finally to acceptance. It would be nice and orderly if things happen that way, but they rarely, if ever, do. And as I said before, people can go back and forth between stages in an orderly progression or in a very haphazard way. They may be skipped and or repeated. Some may never be experienced. Somebody may move through their stages in months. For others, it may take years. The one thing that's true is that each loss is unique to each individual and situation. No two people will process 2 losses the same. What I have found to be true is that the process of grieving never truly ends. It usually gets easier and is less present in our lives with time and work to heal or complete the relationship. But there will always be events or memories or dates that trigger the grief, and that's normal. Grief is a normal, healthy reaction to a loss. The love we had for someone doesn't die when they die. It lives on. Negative feelings about a relationship don't disappear when they die. They only disappear if the work is done. Or even conflicting feelings, a love-hate relationship just doesn't go away. We need to do the emotional work to acknowledge all of the feelings, to say all the things that have been left unsaid in writing and out loud, either to a neutral person or to a pillow. If your picking a person, make sure they can simply hear you and not judge. No comments are necessary, just ears. And you need to do the apologies, the forgiveness, and even the gratitude to release. Tears and laughter are both great sources of emotional release. Journaling, letter writing, not sending them, but burning, shredding, or flushing are good. It's important that if the relationship that you're grieving is with a person who is still alive, make sure you do not send any of this. You want to get rid of it by burning, shredding, or flushing. Get professional help through a grief coach, a bereavement support group, and/or a therapist. And ending at the 5 stages of grief were not devised for you. They are not a true framework for grievers. Grief is normal reaction to loss. Every loss is different. No two people grieve the same way. We all have different time frames for each loss, and we experience loss each time there's a change in a usual and customary pattern of behavior or communication. Seek assistance to learn how to process grief and complete a loss so it doesn't prevent you from living a full and joyful life. My final thought for this is that you will be a different person after the event, after you move through your life quake. That doesn't mean you're going to be less than. What it means is you're just going to be different. So it presents a wonderful opportunity to be able to redefine who you are and who you want to be. For many women, especially those who might be in their 50s and above, often choices for careers, even for partners, was determined by family. If it's a spouse or a parent who has died, you don't have that person to censor you. You have freedom to be who you want to be. I think of Marlo Thomas and Free to Be You and Me. It's a wonderful opportunity, even with the sadness and the challenges. What I have found has helped me is gratitude journaling, finding things every single day to be grateful for. Because what you focus your attention on is what grows. So the more you can find to be thankful for, the more things that will come up into your life to be thankful for. And if you're interested, I do have a few spots in my schedule and would love to talk with you about life transition coaching, grief coaching, with or without Reiki. And also feel free to join my Facebook group, which is free, and there are lots of goodies on there. I look forward to seeing you at the next podcast. And remember, I appreciate you, I honor you, and I love you. Take care.
If you liked what you heard on this podcast and want to hear more, please follow us and tell your friends. You can also find me on Facebook at Amy Lindner Lesser, Grief to Growth Life Coaching, and on LinkedIn at Amy Lindner Lesser.